Welcome back to the Formation Lap with Todd and Brad, regular guys talking elite racing, and F1 is back. I'm so excited. It's been a good summer break. It's been a long summer break though. It doesn't feel that long, but it is so good to have racing back. So we want to welcome you back here to the Formation Lap, and we are previewing Zandvoort this weekend. And what a weekend we've got! A sprint race, qualifying, and of course the race on Sunday. We're going to break it all down for you, and it just feels so good to be back to racing. Todd, I welcome you in here. It's back. We've had a lot of news happen. Of course, both the Williams guys signing extensions. Max Verstappen signing an extension. We'll probably hit on that sometime in a later episode. Isaac Hadjar's out for the weekend with a wrist injury, so Liam moves to the Red Bull seat, and Yuki Tsunoda is back in F1. So, Todd, I welcome you here. Feels good to be back, but we've got a lot going on in F1, not just on the racetrack, but off of it too.
Yeah, hey Brad. Yeah, it's great to be back. And I was out trying to watch it on my phone, listen to it on my phone. I couldn't wait, and I played it a couple of times to hear the talk. We didn't have a silly season, but we had some changes, definitely so.
Absolutely.
But we're back, and we're at a distinctive track too,
Hmm.
which is pretty cool. As you read about it, some of these dunes from World War II, were there, and they went and built a track. So yeah, it's going to be interesting because this one's got some banks on it. Got
Hmm.
like a little go-kart track is the way I look at it. When you look, from above, you're like, this thing's a tiny little thing in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, drivers, my fantasy team, I have to think about this now because Liam's been in mine for a while. Now he's going to flip
Same.
on me.
Same.
And I'm not sure I'm gonna go with Yuki. We'll just let that be. But I know he was excited too.
Yeah.
But they didn't find out till Monday,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Crazy. Crazy.
But
So,
yeah, I hope everybody had a good break. And
absolutely.
if you didn't, go back and listen to a couple of our Beyond the Grid checkered flag because we were able to talk a little bit about some things that we'll hopefully highlight in this series tonight, just to have you look at it a little differently. But Brad, yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, here we are, round 12, right? And I think we might get another race in October. There's Singapore, wasn't it, or Malaysia? Excuse me. I was
Yeah.
trying. So they're going to add one back in, but here we are, round 12. Kimmy leads by 50. They're already talking about it. Russell's 9. Mercedes dominated early, and now the field has caught back up to them. So, you know, I can't wait. It's exciting.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned it. So Kimmy leads Lewis by 50, and then George is not that far behind. And Todd, it's been the story of Mercedes is dominated. Ferrari has broken through and is definitely challenging. And then, McLaren with and Lando with a dominant performance in Hungary. So we're going to find out, Todd, starting with the sprint race. And just to put this out there, we are recording this after sprint qualifying. So we kind of we are going to know who is starting in what position for the
Yeah.
sprint race. But Todd, we're going to find out sprint race qualifying and then the race on Sunday. Did the summer break reset anything? Of course, we know that they are not allowed for those certain amount of weeks they're not allowed to make any kind of changes. It is just, they have to truly, step away from the factors or whatever. So did anything reset or are we just picking off from Hungary? And that's going to be the question going in to
It
Zandvoort
is.
this weekend.
It is, and folks, if you hadn't seen it, they're tight. I think the four
Yeah.
now it's McLaren. Your guys have come back. It wasn't just a one-time fluke. They're right there in the mix, and we saw it in free practice. It's always hard to tell, but sprint
Mm-hmm.
qualifying is a little different too because they've got to use on each qualifying lap. They have to have a new set of tires in the
Yeah.
sprint qualifying, and so we're not sure what we're going to see, and a lot of them are in the gravel. The winds were so I don't think it's a total reset. I think it's just they're building upon what's already happening. But Brad, this track literally snakes through the sand dunes. I said the North Sea, and
Yeah.
you and I have been over in that area. I've been in Amsterdam and didn't go to this part, but it gets windy up there and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
Brad, what do you think about this track?
I love it. I mean, I've driven this on the F1 video game, and then
Oh
we've driven this at the F1 arcade here in Atlanta,
yeah,
and
we have.
and it is super fun. It's tight. It's I know me and you were talking about it's an old school track. I mean, it reminds you of some of the just older European tracks where it's very it's very tight. It's condensed. There are some overtaking opportunities, but at the same time, it's limited because you have one long straight, and Todd, we'll see a mix of low speed corners. I would say mostly low speed corners, some high speed corners, but it's a lot of fun. And Todd, something that you know we're here in the heart of NASCAR country, and what do all these NASCAR tracks have? Well, they had those heavy banking areas, right? And Zandvoort's really the only circuit on the calendar that has that heavy banking, and it's cool to see that. And we'll specifically
Yeah, it
see
is.
there in I believe
Two of
it's
them actually,
yeah,
in
yeah.
turn
So
three and 14.
turn 3 and 4 at 3 and 14.
14.
Thank you. These guys will take different lines and they'll try to, take a line to make them slingshot off. And Todd, with these new cars, with the battery deployment and everything,
Yeah.
it's going to be really, really fun to see how they use that. I'm interested to see is, you know, especially in the sprint race, for our time, tomorrow morning, will they use some of that battery deployment to slingshot off of that banking and try to make up,
Yeah.
those tenths of a second to make a pass. So I love this track. I know we were just talking about it. They're going to go to Zandvoort every other year. I hate it because this is a fun track.
Yeah, it is. And being on the North Sea, you could tell it was cold.
Yes.
And there's the rain, you don't know. It was raining right before free practice, so that's the
Mm-hmm.
first time we've seen wet tires. Uh, uh, Yuki was saying, "Hey, I hope it rains because that equalizes everybody, and he gets to." And he hasn't really
Right.
driven these
No.
new cars, and
Right.
Liam being in the more advanced car, you know, we'll see what happens. But I think
Yeah.
Madrid is the next one that has the banking, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
Spanish. That's going to be a brand new track,
Right. Right.
and so they'll be doing that. But yeah, Brad, I think it's the narrow curves. It's not it is a straightaway, but you're coming out of turn 14 in that bank, and
Mm-hmm.
then you got the straightaway. But after that,
Right.
it's a zigzag. But I'm
Right.
excited. I think the drivers are excited. I don't think we're going to see weather now that's going to impact it as much for the rain. It might be a little bit tomorrow, but Sunday now they're saying it looks more favorable.
Yeah.
And so that's great because, yeah, folks, if you watched it, there was many of them on the gravel. And
Yeah.
is it because they're rusty, Brad, or is it because the track? What do you think?
I won't say, I mean, it could be a little bit, I'm sure they spent plenty of time in their simulators and everything, but look, simulators only take you so far. It's different when you've been away for, about 4 weeks at this point. We saw world champion leader Kimmy. I mean, he had a moment there. Todd, I think the biggest thing is you mentioned it, that wind coming off the sea is just,
Yeah,
it can really, really mess up your line and mess up your lap. So, I mean, we saw several of them exiting some banking, and that wind just it kind of took the rear end away, and they didn't fully lose it, but definitely had a brief moment there where they were kind of sliding, and that'll cost you a couple of tenths for sure. So um, don't wouldn't say that it's any kind of rustiness. I think it's these wind conditions, and this is
got
something
it.
I feel
Yeah,
like we always see at Zandvoort. Todd, one more thing before I turn it back over to you. I'm so excited that F1 continues to rotate these sprint races every year. Like I mean, we saw Silverstone have a sprint race this year, and now we're seeing it
yeah,
here in Zandvoort. It's fun to see these different tracks get an opportunity. What I love about the sprint races is these guys are all out for 18, 19, 20 laps. And so it's a lot of fun to see, just not the same track. So no, over and over, get the sprint races.
yeah. And I think if I remember right, the driver could potentially get 30 something points if they got pole, if they win, if they get pole, if they win. So I think they can get a more points than just 25.
Correct. It'll be so if the driver gets first in the sprint and first in the race on Sunday, he'll 35 points there.
Yeah,
That's a huge deal. That's a good load of points. And Todd, I mean, we're talking about it's still a tight it, every race. I mean, in the constructors too, from the battle of Ferrari versus Mercedes and then McLaren, but even the midfield
yeah.
teams when it's a sprint weekend, those are valuable points up for grabs.
Yeah, it is. So, yeah, the sprint will be fun, and we'll see what the weather does. There is a chance of
Yeah,
rain, so we'll see
yeah.
what it does. But, so today told us a lot. That Mercedes is still the one to beat.
Mm-hmm.
And Russell takes the sprint. That kind of surprised me.
Same, same.
And I mean, Kimmy wasn't doing well, but I didn't see George pulling out. I really thought Lando was going to
Yeah,
just the way that they were doing it.
yeah,
But Mercedes, admits that Ferrari looks strong, but Ferrari's Ferrari. They're keeping their, right in there in the 3, 4, 5, and they're like they can't do it. But I see McLaren has done their work, and
mm-hmm.
they just haven't. They built race after race. I mean, if you look at the first of the year, man, I would have said, okay, this year is gone. But
Yeah,
it is. And then Ferrari, Charles, he loves this type of
he
track.
does. He
Lewis,
does.
of course, does too. But they're all within what point something of a second,
It's close.
the
It's
top
close.
six. And Lewis is he. I think he's still trying to figure out the car, but he's got a lot more
Mm-hmm.
confidence. When I see him
Mm-hmm.
in the interviews, it's been better. And then here it is. Max just signed a deal through 2030, and he still can't get this car going. And this is his home course, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be interesting. And then I saw Alpine. They jumped in. Again. But
Yep.
Brad, what do you think? What'd you see that Friday told you?
You know, I thought the big story, Todd, was George out qualifying Kimmy. Like
Yeah,
you mentioned, Kimmy was fastest in our only practice session, but then George has a unbelievable lap and takes it over Lando. For the sprint position. Todd, one of the things we talked about after our Hunger episode is, man, this was going to be really good for George. Get away, really just don't think about F1. He's had a rough year. We're not going to hit on that because we've talked about it. He got engaged, so maybe
yeah. He
that's
didn't think about F1. He thought
right.
about his
He
girlfriend.
got
Yeah,
engaged, but hey,
yeah,
look, hats off to George. I mean, he's not going to go down without a fight, and
yeah.
I commend him for putting in a great lap. It's going to be interesting because I think he is, to me, Todd, with the sprint race, he's got a chance to. I mean, he's in first, Kimmy's in fifth, so he's got a chance to, just in the sprint race, steal 5 points off of Kimmy's lead there. So
He does.
that's a very, very big deal. That was the big takeaway for me. And Todd, I got to tell you, I know he's in P11, but Liam Lawson continues to impress me. I mean, he has looked really, really good for Racing Bulls this year, and P11 is a great position for him. But I got to tell you, Arvid Lindblad, man,
He is.
he is right up there, and I wonder if Lindblad's like, hey, I know Red Bull chose Lawson to take over for Isaac, but should have been thinking about me. So I don't know,
Well, and
just
I think to that Liam, I think this is where he got demoted. What 2 years ago now? I can't remember exactly where, or it was somewhere in this where he came back, and so Liam has been there, right? And
yes,
I think it was
absolutely,
good for racing Red Bull to recognize that and say, and there's talk. I mean, look at his career. He's had a wild career,
yeah, yeah,
Liam in
definitely,
himself. Liam Ladd's like, hey, here I am, but I think it was a good hats off move too. And don't get me wrong, Liam can drive the car, but
absolutely,
I think it was, hey, maybe it wasn't handled. We should have let you race a lot longer at Red Bull,
right,
you know, but you proved yourself in Racing Bulls, and so come on up. And so, terrible for Isaac
yeah,
because he's been driving well. But
he's
you're
been
exactly
great.
right. I think those two guys, and if you looked at some of the commentary or whatever, Red Bull is the only one that has a junior team in the F1. So it's like that's easy, right? To where Yuki
Yeah,
hasn't been driving this.
right.
But yeah, I'm with you. I think that's going to be a good battle down there where he is. In Limlad now, his running buddy is in the Red Bull, and now Limlad's in Racing Bull. He said, "Hey, I'm going to show you."
Yeah,
So that's what I'd be doing too, Brad. If I was
yeah.
Limlad, I'd be like, "All right, you got in the souped up car. I'm going to come after you."
There you go. There you go. Let's talk about a couple of battles. And this
Yeah,
first one we'll talk about is specifically for the sprint race because, like I said, we kind of know who the top four. So, battle number one here, Todd, Russell versus Lando versus Charles versus Oscar. These guys are all super tight. This is going to be an interesting sprint race. And, Todd, sprints are tough because yes, these guys are competitors. Yes, they want to push, but they also have to think about, hey, there is points up for guys, but they also don't want to risk getting into some car damage and them
Yeah,
possibly
because
uh,
qualifying's in the
that
afternoon.
and that's exactly right. They don't want to possibly put themselves in a dangerous position to have the cars messed up for qualifying and therefore messing their race up on Sunday. So I think you're going to see those top four guys push, but I don't think they're going to overdo it. And that's going to be interesting to me. I'm hoping Lando. I would love to see Lando get a good start, but at the same time, we know that the big points are on Sunday. So Oscar versus Charles versus Lando versus George. I think that's going to be interesting. Todd, Kimmy versus Lewis. Do you see Lewis being able to take a big chunk out of Kimmy's lead? Because Kimmy looks good, but I'm wondering. Lewis has been charging, and some other guys. Do you think this is where Lewis once again takes a big chunk out of this lead this
Yeah,
weekend?
I'm thinking so, Brad. I think the race that we're seeing tomorrow in the sprint is what we're going to see also on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
It's these six guys, and
Yeah.
Max will be in the middle of it, and then we'll have a couple of surprises, right? But
Right.
I think
Right.
Lewis has, he said on an interview, he says, "I'm in the best shape I've ever been," and that's telling you something about a 40-something-year-old guy
Absolutely.
that's mentally and physically there. So I think he is going to be able to do it. And Kimmy knows that Kimmy's a great driver, but if
Yeah.
Lewis can jump ahead, just ahead of Kimmy and then maybe ahead of Oscar, quickly, then he could hold off in a sprint, in my opinion. For the race, it might be a little dicey, but I think Lewis is going to keep chipping away, and Kimmy knows it.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, Kimmy is not quite feeling 100%, but he hasn't done well in the sprint qualifying before in this year,
Yeah.
but he ends up doing. But I do believe it's going to happen. And then Brad, I think, as I said, these six are going to be what we see on Sunday, and you've got the wild card there, right, Max, and this is home court. What do you think about Max and Zandvoort?
I don't, in my opinion, the Red Bull, I think especially with the upgrades that my guys McLaren have brought, I think Red Bull is clearly the fourth best, the 4 out of 4 for the the big guys,
Yeah,
the big four constructors. I think Max is going to be anywhere from fourth to seventh on Sunday. I think he's going to be motivated that this is his home race, and like we said, we're not going to be back in Zandvoort for a couple of years. Max is also, I think, Todd going to be. He's going to want to show that, hey, I've put my faith in Red Bull with a contract extension. That Todd, when we got the news, I was shocked because I thought Max was, not out of F1, but he was heading to another team, and we're going to save to talk about that more in detail on a later
right.
date. But I just don't think Red Bull right now, with where the other constructors are at, I don't think they are in a position to qualify. They're not in a position to get a win. I think if something crazy happens, which it could, Max has got a shot at the podium, but I don't think they are within the other three teams. But
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think Max is good at manufacturing.
that's a great way to put it. Yep.
When he sees it, he will figure it out. And even the car's not working, he is
Yep.
so smart at driving. And then of
Yep.
course, this being his home, and I'm with you. I think they're so close,
Yep.
but I think McLaren has now leapfrogged them on that, and Ferrari and Mercedes are right there. So we're not ruling them out,
Right.
but
Right.
definitely so. But yeah, it should be interesting.
Yep, yep. All right, Todd. Let's get into Red versus Paya. What are you looking for out of your Ferrari guys this weekend?
Well, I'm encouraged to see Charles. He hadn't gone
Yep.
down the I can't do this or whatever, where he was. So I think it's good to see him right there too. And so that proved that he's very technical at these type tracks. So this is going to slower track. So that plays right into Charles. Lewis showed some pace earlier, but he's still struggling. I think it's because he's just tweaking this car so much and getting his
Mm-hmm.
team to think so hard about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's making it happen. So I think Ferrari has, and they brought some upgrades, more
Yeah.
small upgrades, but
Right.
upgrades are upgrades. Ferrari has, put the whole weekend together. you can see they are really making momentum. So I feel good about them. I don't know if they'll be, winning, but I think they're going to make it. They're going to be right there in the mix and make it tough on McLaren and Mercedes for sure. And if they can keep Max out of it, they would love to do
Right,
that.
right.
So, Brad, talk to me about your guys.
Yeah, very encouraged. I mean, Lando looks just lightning quick, and he was not that far behind George. That's like I said, I'm conflicted because I want Lando to be super aggressive there on lap one and in the sprint race in the morning, but I also don't want him to risk damaging the car and his qualifying be compromised either. So, really, really excited for Lando. I think Lando is in a position to win, obviously to win the sprint. I think Lando can keep the momentum going and have a chance at the win on Sunday. And Oscar looks good. Oscar had an encouraging Grand Prix in Hungary. Unfortunately, had that
Yep.
little bump with Carlos there, and Carlos not getting out of the way. But Oscar looks like he's got some confidence back. And I just think, we've been here as a McLaren fan. I've been reading the articles, hearing from Zach Brown and Andrea Stella that Hungary and Zandvoort, that's going to be when we start pushing for wins. And they've been exactly right. I mean, we are now right there with Mercedes and Ferrari. So
Yep.
I don't know. Oscar won here last year. I'm really watching Oscar closely. If Oscar wins, that tells me okay, McLaren's in this thing, and I think Oscar's got a good chance too. I think Oscar's going to come out aggressive too because he knows that he needs to start picking up some momentum here to get him. He's probably too far back in the drivers, but still he can make some positions up in the drivers
Oh yeah. And
standings as well.
Brad, 6 rounds ago, we wouldn't have been talking about this,
Absolutely
and
not.
so it's great to see this. And
Yep.
so I think it's going to happen. I think they're for real, and they're in a Mercedes car,
Yep.
so if they start beating the provider of the engine is like, that's hats off to them
Yep.
because they have figured it out and they're very good at that. So I'm excited about it. So Brad,
Yep.
you want to go into predictions?
Absolutely. I'm gonna go pretty quick here. My sprint winner, I'm gonna go George. Once again, I think Lando's gonna be aggressive, but I think that George will hold it off. My pole position, I'm going Oscar Piastri. I think Oscar's got something, and I'm going with Oscar as my race winner. I think he's got some confidence. I'm watching out for him. My podium surprise. I don't know that it's going to happen, but Todd, I'm kind of watching for Liam Lawson to maybe see if he can challenge. And then my bold prediction is, I think I don't know. I think I'm going to say Arvid Lindblad is going to outscore one of the big four. I love the way this guy races. He's been so good. So that's my bold prediction is Arvid outscores one of the big four
I
drivers.
love it. I
Yep.
love it. Well, all right. So for the sprint, I think I'm gonna go with Lando. I think he's gonna figure out
I
how to get
like
around George.
that.
Even though I want Charles to be there,
Yep.
but I
Yep.
think Lando has got that momentum, that big going for him.
hmm
Even though George has got engaged and everything else, he's gonna be distracted on that. But for pole, I'm gonna say that Lando figures it out
Okay.
on that, and Charles be right behind him,
hmm
and then a mix of that, and then the race winner. You know, I'm torn on this because it's like, man, but I'm gonna say Kimmy.
Ooh.
I
Okay.
think he will
Okay.
figure it out because he's just that calm, cool, collective kid, on that. And then podium surprise, I think we're gonna see. I'm kind of like you. I think Liam's gonna push it and
hmm
get there, but he's gonna have to get past his max, and that's not easy. But
That's not easy.
and then bold prediction, I think Gasly could be in the top
I
four.
like that one. I like that.
So that's kind of where I'm going on that.
I
So,
like that.
Brad, I'm excited.
Yes.
And as we close, I'll hand it back to you. But we spent the summer, talking about in our Beyond the Checkered Flag series about, you know, when does the race really start? There's quiet races going on before, you even see it on the TV, and then what's going on in lap 12 or 15. So, folks, we want you to watch that again, and then, go back and listen to our pit wall, and then when watch the race behind the race, you know. And so we hope that you'll look at it a little differently. I know I am already, and
For
so I'm
sure.
excited. So Brad, I'm excited to see where we go.
Oh, it feels so good to be back. It feels like it was the start of the season back in what was that, February, March. So it's so good to be back. But thank you for joining us here on the Formation Lap with our Zandvoort preview. Hit that like button. We appreciate all the support. We're going to continue to bring you these race previews and our race reactions. Comment on what do you think happens in Zandvoort this weekend. It's going to be entertaining. Hit that subscribe button. We greatly appreciate all your support, all your love that you've shown us. Like I said, we love F1. We love doing this. It's going to be a lot of fun as we continue to bring you stuff here on the Formation Lap. Regular guys talking elite racing. We will see you Monday as we get our Zandvoort race reaction. And it feels good. F1 is back. This is Todd and Brad signing off.